Hello and very warm welcome students again to the next part of this chapter 3 of the novel Moth Smoke. You will be able to see a very interesting incident here that Raider, as we came across this name in the last video, Raider is actually Heather and he's a friend of Daru and he wants to enjoy his life, wants to become a big officer in the Wall Street. But then it's not Raider about which the whole story is going to be. It is about Mahar Jewan, the landlord, the feudal, the symbol of feudal or feudalism inside Pakistan. He's going to be there. So let us see what kind of discussion takes place and what happens because of this feudal man and how does he show his behavior. So Mr. Jeevan says that why you are late? He says that my card was out of order, etc., etc. Then Mr. Jeevan is not ready to accept his explanation and says that why his check has not been cashed so far, and he tries to stress his point, and when he stresses very much, at that time, Daru becomes even more careless and says, I'm not one of your serfs, you bastard, and I want you to get to the hell out of my chair, Mr. Jeevan. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Your tone is disrespectful. So, in that way, the kind of clash of argument takes place, and the argument heats up, and this is what happens there. Before the day of judgment, as every good banker knows, will come a night of insolvency. And on that night, I intend to go calling on one or two of my more troublesome clients. But for now, my bank is still around sound, and I'm limited in my choice of responses to Mr. Jeevan's attempt to impose feudal hierarchy on my office. Mr. Jeevan, I am doing my best to provide you with any service you require. Do you know who I am? And the answer comes, I'm beginning to lose my temper. Yes, I do. I can have you thrown on the street. Don't threaten me, Mr. Jeevan. I don't work for you. You are a client of this bank. And if you don't like the service you receive here, you're free to go elsewhere. Now, this is the argument which is taking place between Mr. Jeevan. I call him Mahar Jeevan because such characters possibly are available as the superpowers, mini superpowers, feudals who try to have their way, try to have their day everywhere. Though Daru may not be working well, may be a very careless person, but then over stressing on one's point and power that he can throw him outside the street and he can deal with him in that way, harsh way. Mr. Jeevan is stressing on that, and ultimately, Daru loses his temper and says him to leave the bank, says him to leave the chair, says him that you can do anything. And that is why Mr. Jeevan goes to the manager and complains against Daru, and Daru is asked, their explanation is demanded. Ultimately, Mr. Jeevan is given the preference and Daru is given a firing from the job. He's no more on the job. He's fired. He's asked to go there. She is already very much upset, and this thing comes as a bombshell on his head. So from here, we have one or two very important things that we should talk about. One of them is that the banks run on their clients. These are corporate sectors, and that is why the clients are very much important for them. As a result, the client is given preference. Protection is not available for Mr. Shizad, and that is why he is given order that he should go. And then, secondly, this may be not so good, but then it's a feudalistic attitude reflected by Mr. Jeevan. He couldn't, stop without complaining to the manager. Instead of showing some sympathy for that banker, he goes and complains, and as a result, he is fired from there. So the country is still being run by such people, by such powerful people, by such wealthy people. They seek to be obeyed. They want that their power should be, definitely recognized. But leaving aside all that, we can also say that this part of the chapter goes to show the deficiencies which happen because of such workers who cannot show patience, because of such workers who are unable to satisfy their clients. Because in corporate sector, client is a person who needs to be satisfied at every cost. Pakistan has acquired these systems of corporate businesses, but then that type of training is not available, and that is why Daru is going to suffer from that. Besides that, we can add one more argument that Daru is upset not because he is an upset man all the time, angry man all the time, but then the situation from which he has passed, the kind of drinking, the wife of his best friend, the attraction towards her, then dealing with the police people at night, and ultimately losing the petrol and then buying the petrol and coming with great difficulty, sleeping and having uneasy night, uneasy stomach, uneasy throat, everything combined together to make him suffering like that. So if the youth is not guided properly, trained properly, and they're allowed to fall into such traps, then definitely this is the result, that they cannot run their business properly. Moreover, the writer seems to stress on the professionalism, that your personal life may be bad, but professionally you have to be very much expert in the corporate sector. Daru couldn't maintain that, and that is why he was fired. So this is the next section of the novel. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, and let us then talk about some other sections of this novel before this chapter ends. We may be entering into the new chapter, but there are some other things that we need to talk about. So wait for the next video. Hope to see you in the next video.